Iran is spending $64 million per attack. Israel is spending $258 million to defend against it. Do that math across 19 days of sustained warfare, and you begin to understand why this conflict has already been decided in a room that has no missiles in it. This is not a war anymore about who hits harder. It is a war about who runs out first. And the numbers say Israel is running out faster. But first, let me show you exactly what happened last night, because the official story and the strategic reality are not the same thing. 4 waves, 160 missiles, less than 3 hours. The first salvo lifted off just before midnight. 43 ballistic missiles. Arrow interceptors launched from batteries across Israel, racing to meet them at altitude. By 12:30, another 37 were inbound. By 1:15, the largest salvo of the night, 51 missiles airborne simultaneously. A fourth and final wave came just after 2 in the morning. When the all-clear sounded, Israel had fired 86 Arrow interceptors. The interception rate approximately 78%. That is, by any historical measure, a remarkable defensive performance. The Israeli government said so. The IDF said so. The headlines said so. And none of them is wrong. But here is the line that did not make the headlines. Those 86 interceptors represent a minimum of $258 million in expended munitions, and Israel cannot replace them on any timeline that matters right now. This was not an exceptional night. It was the 11th major Iranian attack in 19 days. And the pattern, high-volume salvos spread across multiple waves, is not random, it is doctrine. Because what Iran is targeting is not Israeli cities. It is Israel's ability to defend those cities tomorrow. Let us run the math that matters. Each Arrow 2 interceptor costs approximately $2.2 million. Each Arrow 3, the version that operates above 100 kilometers, in the edge of space, costs approximately $3.5 million. Last night's 86 launches, using conservative estimates on the mix of variants, a minimum of $258 million, possibly exceeding $300 million. Iran's missiles, between $150,000 and $400,000 per unit. 160 missiles, $64 million total. 4-to-1 cost advantage for the attacker, sustained over 19 days. Cumulative Israeli interceptor expenditure since this conflict began is now estimated between $1.8 and $2.3 billion. And the production line that makes Arrow interceptors, based in the United States, not Israel, produces approximately 60 to 80 per year under normal conditions. Israel has been consuming that many in a single week. Even with emergency priority designations and unlimited funding, manufacturing lead time is a minimum of 9 months from raw materials to deliverable missile. Guidance computers require radiation-hardened processors with 12-month backlogs. Rocket motor propellant takes months to cure. Final assembly cannot be rushed. The math doesn't work, not in weeks, not in months. Which brings us to the number that changes the entire strategic picture, fewer than 200 Arrow interceptors remaining. Before this conflict began, the Israeli Arrow inventory was estimated at between 400 and 500 total interceptors. After 19 days of sustained combat, 11 major attacks at scale, current assessments suggest fewer than 200 remain. That is not enough for 2 more nights like last night. 3 more attacks at a similar scale, and Israel drops below 100. At that threshold, air defense commanders face rationing decisions that no democratic government can make publicly. Which cities receive full coverage? Which are left with degraded protection? Tel Aviv or Haifa, military installations or civilian centers? Those choices have never had to be made. The shield was never supposed to run low. Inside classified briefings, reported by Israeli defense journalists, the IDF has already presented worst-case scenarios. The assessment concluded that stocks could reach critical levels within 2 to 3 weeks, defined as fewer than 50 interceptors remaining. At that point, a 6-month window opens where Israel's ballistic missile defense capability falls to pre-Arrow levels. That 6-month window is precisely what Iran is engineering. And Iran's 82nd wave of operations is not happening in isolation. It is happening at the exact moment a diplomatic opening appears to be forming. While the interceptor crisis deepens, Iran's operational tempo has not slowed. The IRGC announced its 82nd wave of retaliatory operations, a combination of missile strikes and large-scale drone deployments, carried out in response to strikes on Iranian infrastructure. The operation, according to Iranian statements, involved 230 total actions within a single 24-hour period. 87 were attributed to Hezbollah in Lebanon, 23 to Iraqi resistance groups, 110 to Iran's own missile and drone units directly. Independent verification of specific strike outcomes remains limited. But the scale of claimed operations, regardless of the actual success rate, signals that Iran has no intention of de-escalating unilaterally. Alongside the missile campaign, a separate IRGC Navy commander was reported killed in a joint strike near Bandar Abbas. Ali Reza Tangsiri, the naval chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps since 2018, was described as a key architect of Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz. His reported death marks one of the most senior command-level losses in this conflict. Iran has not confirmed it. If confirmed, it represents a significant disruption to the coordination of maritime pressure, but it does not end that pressure. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed. Global energy markets continue to absorb the impact. And now Yemen is signaling it is ready to open a second choke point. At his cabinet briefing, Donald Trump stated publicly that Iran is begging for a deal. He characterized the Iranian regime as decisively defeated and said he didn't know whether the United States was willing to accept whatever was being offered. He referenced a 5-day pause on certain strikes, suggested the Strait of Hormuz could reopen as part of a settlement, and warned that if Iran does not act quickly, there is no turning back. At the same moment, according to senior Israeli officials cited by the New York Times, Netanyahu has issued a directive to the IDF to intensify strikes over the next 48 hours, specifically targeting Iran's military infrastructure, before any ceasefire can be finalized. Israel fears that the deal on the table does not guarantee the dismantlement of Iran's nuclear program, the elimination of its ballistic missile stockpiles, or meaningful degradation of the axis of resistance network. For Israel, this window, with US air power still engaged, may not open again. The Karg Island question sits directly in the middle of this tension. The island handles approximately 90% of Iran's oil exports. Trump has publicly floated the idea of seizing it. Iran is now fortifying it aggressively, deploying additional troops, air defense systems, and shore-based missiles, and reportedly laying mines along potential landing zones. An assault on Karg would be the most significant escalation in the conflict so far. It would directly strike Iran's economic lifeline. It would also give the United States a maritime foothold inside the Persian Gulf, and it could force the Strait of Hormuz back open. What it cannot guarantee is what Iran does next. Because Yemen has already told the world it is not staying out. Yemen's Supreme Political Council has now reaffirmed what Ansarullah has been signaling since the start: full solidarity with Iran, and a warning to Arab states not to become instruments of what it calls a coordinated campaign against Iran. Ansarullah forces are reported to be on full alert. They are positioning to use the Bab al-Mandab Strait, the narrow maritime corridor at the mouth of the Red Sea, as a strategic pressure lever. We have seen this before. After October 2023, Ansarullah demonstrated it could disrupt global shipping lanes, force vessels to reroute around southern Africa, and sustain an aerial and naval blockade for months. That capability did not disappear. It was paused. If Ansarullah activates the Bab al-Mandab at the same moment, the Strait of Hormuz remains contested. Two of the world's most critical maritime choke points close simultaneously. The economic consequences would extend far beyond the region. This is the logic trap at the center of the conflict. Iran cannot accept a deal that leaves it permanently disarmed. Israel cannot accept a ceasefire that leaves the axis of resistance intact. The United States wants a deal that it can describe as a decisive win. These three positions are not compatible, and the interceptors keep depleting. The visible story is missiles and interceptions and troop movements and diplomatic pauses. The invisible story is about what kind of regional architecture survives this conflict. Whether Iran's axis of resistance, a network built across Lebanon, Iraq, Yemen, and Gaza over 4 decades, can be meaningfully degraded by air power alone. Whether Israel's deterrence doctrine, built on an assumption of aerial supremacy and inexhaustible U.S. support, holds under sustained attritional pressure, and whether the United States exits this conflict with its strategic credibility enhanced or diminished. None of those questions has an answer yet. But every Arrow interceptor fired, every wave of Iranian drones launched, every hour the Strait of Hormuz stays closed, each of these is writing the answer in real time. What we are watching is not just a war. It is a negotiation about the next 30 years of Middle Eastern order. And the terms are still being written. The story doesn't end here, it evolves. What we discussed today is not just a headline. It is a structural shift in how military power and diplomatic leverage interact in the modern Middle East. If this analysis gave you something the mainstream coverage didn't, follow the channel.